In the history of WWE, there have been giant warriors, technical champions, and superstars who look like gods. But there was also a very different man, a madman, someone who didn't have a body of steel but had an indestructible heart. Today I will tell you the story of Mick Foley, the craziest wrestler to ever step inside the ring. The man who bled, suffered, and risked his life just so that you sitting in your seat would never forget him. Born in New York, Foley grew up as a passionate wrestling fan. He wasn't athletic, nor the typical prototype of a perfect wrestler, but he had a dream. From a young age, he trained relentlessly and debuted in the independent circus under the name Cactus Jack. This character represented pure violence, a leather jacket, old boots, and above all, a suicidal attitude. Foley gained the reputation of being insane because he did things no one else dared to do, throwing himself onto concrete floors, taking barbed wire shots, and enduring blows that seemed fatal. Cactus Jack became famous in WCW and in Japan, where hardcore wrestling made him a cult hero. There, he fought bloody battles against Terry Funk and other gladiators who pushed him to his limits. It was normal to see him finish matches covered in blood, with skin torn open by thumbtacks or even burns from fire. Foley was no longer just a wrestler. He was a living legend of pain and suffering. When he arrived in WWE in 1996, Vince McMahon knew he had struck gold. But instead of bringing him in as Cactus Jack, he gave him a darker twist. That's how Mankind was born, a sinister character with a leather mask, strange movements, and a disturbed mind. Mankind spoke to a pet rat named George, pulled his own hair out during matches, and seemed to enjoy every strike he received. The audience didn't know whether to hate him, fear him, or cheer for him. But one thing was certain, nobody could ignore him. What made Mick Foley even more unique was his ability to transform. He didn't just have one character, he had three. Mankind, the dark and deranged one, Cactus Jack, the savage and bloody brawler, and Dude Love, a hippie parody full of fun and sarcasm. Foley switched between these personas like an actor, and in one of WWE's wildest storylines, he even ended up wrestling against himself on screen. Fans loved this creativity, and Foley proved that wrestling wasn't only about muscles. It was about storytelling and entertainment. On June 28, 1998, at King of the Ring, Mankind faced the Undertaker in the infamous Hell in a Cell match. What happened that night became one of the most shocking moments in sports history. First, the Undertaker threw Foley off the top of the cage, sending him crashing more than 20 feet through the announcer's table. The crowd thought he was dead, but incredibly, Foley got up and climbed back to the top. Minutes later, the Undertaker sent him crashing again, this time through the roof of the cell, smashing down into the ring in a brutal scene. He had a tooth lodged in his nose, a dislocated shoulder, and broken ribs. Yet he continued fighting. That night, Mankind didn't just lose a match, he earned eternal glory as the craziest wrestler of all time. His body paid the price for that madness. He lost part of his ear in Germany after a brutal hit against the ropes. He suffered countless broken bones, and he lived with chronic pain that would follow him for the rest of his life. And yet, every fall, every scar, and every sacrifice only made him more loved by the fans. Foley showed the world that perfection wasn't necessary. What mattered was giving everything you had. Outside the ring, Mick Foley was the opposite of the man we saw in WWE. He loved his family, he wrote children's books, supported charities, and carried himself as a humble, funny man. The contrast between the kind human being and the deranged wrestler made people respect him even more. Foley wasn't a villain, nor a hero. He was simply real. In 2013, Mick Foley was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, receiving a thunderous ovation that proved his legacy was secured. His career isn't measured by the number of titles he won, but by the unforgettable memories he gave us. Every time a wrestling fan hears the word madness, one name comes to mind immediately: Mick Foley. WWE has had thousands of superstars, but only one true madman who gave everything, risked his life for glory, and taught us all that greatness is not about being perfect, it's about never giving up. That man was Mick Foley, the craziest wrestler in WWE history.